What the actual hell is going on in the UK? I actually think it gets worse and worse every single day. We're literally getting taxed left, right and centre. It actually getting to the point where I feel like most people are just working to survive.
So I woke up this morning and I felt a little bit positive and motivated until I saw my payslip. And let me tell you something, my whole stomach turned inside out, literally.
There is a storm sweeping across the UK, a storm of rising energy bills, plummeting wages, and families losing their homes. But there is also a quieter story at its heart. Millions of single mother households, often created by divorce or separation, are being pushed to the brink. Somewhere between "I don't need a man" and "where are all the real men" lies a painful reality. When women choose independence without a partner's income, the cost becomes far higher than anyone predicted. And as more men are walking away from modern relationships, single mothers are left to shoulder 2 incomes worth of bills, 2 people's worth of unpaid work, and the emotional toll all alone. Today, we will dig into the numbers and the stories. We will explore how fuel poverty, evictions, and job losses cascade into single-parent homes. We will ask why the message, "I don't need a man," sometimes leave women in deeper crisis. Because when one income vanishes, it can mean no heating, empty cupboards, and children forced to grow up too fast. This is about understanding how dual-income households provide a buffer, why children thrive when both parents can contribute, and why men still matter in the home and society. Welcome to the front line of Britain's cost of living crisis, where the absence of a partner is not just emotional, but can be catastrophic.
Right, guys, you can get up, get out. That's your first warning. Second warning, leave on your own accord. Last warning, you're trespassing. We will.
I just don't want to do this anymore. It's so cold in here, as you can see. I'm wrapped up in a duvet. My son's got like 3 different layers on just to try and stay warm because it's so cold in here.
It's my birthday in about 3 hours. And I'm debating whether I can afford to put my heating on in the UK. I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional now. It's 13.5 degrees in my front room. And all I can afford and all I've been living on for the last few months is a fan heater.
Well, it's a little bit better than it was going to be. But to be honest, it's still over doubling the bills we have. And that means we have to decide whether we keep warm and don't eat, or cut down on what we're eating, or freeze and eat. Now, with Ron being on the lung transplant list and his disease, any cold in the winter can cause an infection, which could cause him to be hospitalised, which could cause him to lose his life. So to us, this is an extremely serious issue.
Because these are huge, huge amounts of money, which is why we say, under a Labour government, we'd freeze those prices. We wouldn't allow them to go up, Ella, because what you're already paying is going to go through the roof. And I don't know how you would cope with that, Ella.
That means your typical household will see their bills go up by £85 a year to £1,823.
Now, let's begin with heat and power. The UK's energy crisis has left over 6 million households unable to keep their homes warm and safe. In England alone, 3.7 million homes live in fuel poverty, needing an average of £417 reduction in annual energy costs just to survive. Rampant inflation and record high energy prices force 1.7 million families to choose between heating and eating. For a 2-parent household, this might mean deciding to turn the thermostat down by a degree or 2. But for a single mother home already surviving on 1 income, there is no buffer. Imagine the mother scrapping together every penny, using a single blanket to wrap the child, rationing hot baths so there's just enough for school uniforms in the morning. This is fuel poverty in brutal reality. And many of these women are fresh out of divorce. Only months ago, they thought they would be splitting costs 50-50. Now, they are forced to make impossible choices. This is not an abstract statistics. It's a young mother skipping meals so her kids can eat, a pensioner granddaughter living with grandma just to share the heating bills. For children, the stakes are even higher. Respiratory issues from freezing homes, missed school days, and the fear that daddy, once in the picture, can't come back to plug the gap. When one partner leaves, suddenly the cost of living is double what one person can handle alone.
Project 2025 is coming after no-fault divorce.
I'm now 43 and I'm actually going to be selling my house and moving back in with my parents. So it's quite a difficult decision really, but it's due to the cost of living.
I'm being evicted again. This will be the second time in a row and means I'll be searching for my 6th London home in 9 years. We received the revenge eviction because we told our landlord we did not want people visiting the property every 5 weeks. Despite this being our legal right, she's still evicting us. No-fault evictions are a way for a landlord to remove you from your home with just 2 months' notice, no matter how long you've lived there, without needing to give a justification for doing so. But they need to be done legally to be valid. It's been 4 years since ministers promised to ban Section 21 evictions, yet here I am again.
Next, let's talk about roofs and four walls. Section 21 no-fault evictions surged by 20% in late 2023, with nearly 3,000 households evicted in a single quarter. For 2 adults splitting rent, one missed paycheck can be covered by the other partner. But for a single mother, missing a single month's rent means the bailiffs are on the way. No argument, no appeal. Low-income tenants often spend 2/3 of their income on rent. Single mothers already paying for childcare, school uniforms, and food can't absorb a sudden rent hike. Sisters from Single Mom Advice on Reddit share horror stories. A rent increase of £50 a month, forcing them to move 3 times in less than a year. Each move disrupts children's schooling, shreds community support, and amplifies stress. When women say, "I don't need a man," what they overlook is the financial partnership that marriage or a committed relationship provides. Prior to separation, couples often juggle costs, mortgage plus utility plus childcare. After divorce, that old phrase, 2 incomes are better than 1, becomes life or death. The UK's Renters' Right Bill promises to abolish no-fault evictions in the future, but right now, single mother families are losing homes at record rates. 1 bedroom, 1 income. If that income stumbles, there is no half-full safety net. Behind every eviction notice is a woman who once believed in independence, but now faces homelessness and heartbreak. A home is only as strong as its income. In the last 2 years, UK living standards fell by 5.7%, the biggest 2-year drop since the 1950s. Unemployment spiked in hospitality and retail, fields where women, and especially single mothers, dominate the workforce. Job center queues lengthened, benefit applications soared. For a dual-income couple, losing one job is devastating, but rarely fatal. The second income can cover rent, bills, or childcare while the unemployed spouse finds new work. Now imagine that same scenario for a single mother. Losing her job means every expense, and I mean every expense, whether rent, food, or utility bills, goes unpaid. The only safety net is universal credit, which often covers just a fraction of what's needed. Then there's the "I don't need a man" narrative. It sounds empowering until empowerment meets a fuel bill of £200 or rent of £800 a month. When resources shrink, that mantra can turn bitter. I don't need a man, but I do need £800. Many divorced mothers realize too late that 2 incomes made a partnership more stable, more resilient. And even if a mother re-enters the job market, there is the childcare tax trap. Paying for nursery or childminders can eat up to 50% of her new wage. Suddenly, working full-time barely offsets the cost. A dual-income family might juggle 2 lesser-paid jobs without a childcare crunch. A single parent cannot. Men see these pressures, see the chaos in modern dating, feminist rhetoric on one side, financial strain on the other, and some choose to walk away entirely. But as more men exit, women end up without that second income, and the result is vulnerability they didn't anticipate.
There is absolutely no doubt whatsoever that being single in the UK at the moment is basically, never mind not being able to have an account at Coutts, is basically the worst thing you can do for your financial health. Because on almost every measure, on every single way, if you're single, the chances are you're going to be paying more. You're paying a solo premium. Indeed, if we take a far more significant thing than dining, housing, just earlier this year, Hargreaves Lansdown, the mortgage broker, said that single people are forced to spend £860 more a month on the cost of living than those in couples. Cost of rent, groceries, household bills, much higher for single people living alone compared with couples. And I've spoken to single friends of mine who feel this completely acutely, that they feel that not only in some way is society kind of bit more difficult for you because you're single and people ask you awkward questions and all this sort of thing, but there is quite literally a financial penalty. I mean, what hope? I mean, it's difficult enough for couples to be able to buy a flat or a house or whatever it is these days. Very, very little prospect unless you've got a very good income of doing so on your own. If you're single or you have been single and we're in this cost of living crisis now or more widely, how expensive is it? How difficult is it being single? And do you feel like you're paying a penalty, a sanction for that?
Now we arrive at the human core. Single parents, 90% of whom are women. Post-divorce, many expected equal parenting and shared finances. We hear women say, I don't need a man, yet they still need 2 incomes to keep a home. The subsidy of a partner's income vanishes the moment the divorce decree was signed. A supportive spouse had become an enemy in court, draining assets and child support dragging for months. Meanwhile, men are increasingly walking away, not just from marriage, but from modern dating altogether. They watch rhetoric on social media and see entitlement narratives, hypergamy hustlers, and the cost of male vulnerability. Some men say, if I'm just fodder for feminist next target, I am better off not playing. And when men leave, the single mother household is left with every bill. No we, just me. This is not about shame, it is about reality. We need to ask ourselves, what happens when more than half the workforce decides that modern relationships are too risky? The result is more women alone, more families on the brink, and children who grow up knowing stability only as a memory. And yet, it doesn't have to be this way. A stable dual-income household is not just nice to have, it is life-preserving in times of crisis. The divorce that frees one partner can trap the other in a cycle of poverty. The I don't need a man mantra can turn tragic when the rent is overdue and the kids are cold. If we want fewer families falling apart, we must acknowledge that both men and women have roles to play, and that financial collaboration, not just emotional partnership, is crucial for a resilient family unit. Between sky-high bills and eviction notices, mental health suffers. Single parents report higher rates of anxiety, depression, and insomnia. The constant stress of wondering which bill will come due today. The average single parent runs a credit card balance of over £3,000, while couples often have less than £1,000 in debt per adult. For coping, many rely on food banks, the most visible sign of this crisis. At least 2.1 million food parcels were distributed in 2023, half of which went to families with children. Single mother household made up a disproportionate slice, women queuing at dawn for a loaf of bread. Community kitchens, crowdfunding pages, and charity night shelters become lifelines. But these are stopgaps, not solutions. The underlying reality remains when society says we don't need men, but doesn't provide another way to replace that lost income, families fracture. In this chapter, we debunk the myth that independent single mothers can always get help. The help often arrives too late or not at all. And for men who have walked away, the question is, how do we build a society where leaving doesn't spell disaster for the person left behind? If you have found this video valuable, hit like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to see the real numbers behind the headlines. Because until we rebuild what is broken, too many families will remain shattered.